Welcome. I am Viola Gonzalez, President of the League of Women Voters, Oakland. Thank you for joining us to meet candidates running for School Board District 6. This meeting is being made available with Spanish and Cantonese interpreters. Welcome, Andrea Rocha Puentes and Hernan Lafitte, and Wei Kuan Tong, Harvey Tai, who are helping us interpret. We'll take a minute for the Spanish and then Cantonese interpreter to give participant instructions in language so that they can access the correct Zoom channel. If you could do that now and let me know.
Buenas tardes. Para acceder al lenguaje español, por favor, para acceder al canal de idioma español, hacer clic en el icono del globito en la parte inferior de la pantalla y después seleccionar interpretación idioma español. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the Cantonese. 係你哋好歡迎今次你參加我哋今晚呢個校委會嘅第6區。咁喺你嗰個手機或者喺你個電腦下低咧，你會睇到一個地球儀嘅。咁你按嗰個地球儀咧，就可以選擇你呢個廣東話翻譯㗎啦。OK， 咁你就照我呢個方法去按啦。OK， thank you.
Thank you very much. School board directors are elected to work as a team with the superintendent to ensure students have access to a quality education. They set direction, adopt and monitor a budget, oversee the superintendent, and advocate for children in the school district and public schools. The League uses a few simple rules to be sure you get balanced information and all the candidates are heard equally. The League wants to always give the community a voice, so the audience was invited to send questions in advance, and those questions have been sorted by a team of League leaders. And of course, the candidates do not get the questions in advance. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator, who is going to run the program this evening. Monique Berlanga, who is in her everyday work, is Executive Director of Centro Legal de la Raza, and she'll take it from here. Thank you so much, Monique.
Thank you. So just quickly, good evening, candidates. I'll remind you of a few of the key ground rules. Each candidate is invited to make a 1.5-minute opening statement. For each question, the candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer. We will switch up the order, so you'll take turns answering the questions first. The order has been chosen randomly. To keep the discussion flowing, candidates will be expected to keep answers to 1.5 minutes. You will be timed and we'll all be able to see the timer in this green block labeled timer. As moderator, I might have to cut you off so we can stick to the schedule. And again, I just want to extend a warm welcome to our 3 candidates for School Board District 6, Valerie Batchelor, Kira Munguia, and Joel Velasquez. And I will now invite each candidate to make a 1.5-minute opening statement, starting with Ms. Munguia.
Thank you so much, Monique. And thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. I am Kira Munguia, and I couldn't be happier to be before you this evening. Oakland schools face real challenges. I'm running because it's time to bring the focus back to what matters most, our students. Because right now, we are failing too many of them, especially our Black and Brown students, at an unconscionable rate. I've dedicated my career to Oakland kids, first as an OUSD teacher and most recently citywide. I'm an equity-driven problem solver who gets stuff done. In just my 2nd year of teaching, 90% of my students were at or above grade level in reading. And as Deputy Director of Education, when the pandemic hit, I partnered and fundraised with others to hand out over 39,000 laptops and 17,000 hotspots to Oakland Public School students. I oppose charter schools and I strongly support our teachers. I've been there. It's the hardest job in the world. I'm a proud Latina and Asian American woman, a young Dem, and I'm also now the appointed board member working to lift up our young people. I will fight to make our district functional, responsive, and financially stable so that all students, families, and educators across Oakland can succeed. I'm honored to have the support of many local and state leaders, including but not limited to Attorney General Rob Bonta, Assemblymember Mia Bonta, the Building Trades Council, Malia Cohen, Betty Yee, the Latina Young Dems, Supervisors Miley and Brown, Council Members Taylor, Kolb, and Gallo. And together we can do better by our students, and I would be incredibly honored to have your support in doing so. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Velasquez, I will invite you to make a 1.5-minute opening statement. You're muted, Mr. Velasquez.
My apologies, I'll start over. Okay, so my name is Joel Velasquez. Thank you, Monique, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. I know this is a busy time of year for all of us, so I really appreciate everyone taking the time. You know, I want to start with, I am a resident here of Oakland. Oakland's been my home here for almost 3 decades. I am a father of 3 children that were born and raised here in Oakland, California, and only have attended Oakland Unified Schools. I have 2 proud graduates from Oakland Tech and 1 currently attending Edna Brewer. And our experience here in Oakland over the last 2 decades of having my children in school, over 4 different districts across this great city, and experiencing what my children experience at sites, at 7 different sites, is really, really important to emphasize of our experience here, here in Oakland, working with teachers, working as a PTA president, working on SCC meetings, and working side by side with our community throughout the last 2 decades. I want to say my community, my connection runs deep here in Oakland. I am a fierce public education advocate. I'm an organizer and a trusted leader that people know throughout the city. I've dedicated thousands of hours of my time, personal time, as an advocate across and traveling across DC to testify to the Department of Education. And I'm sorry, is the timer correct? Because I have a different time, sorry.
That is correct. We are at time. Thank you, Mr.
Sorry,
Velasquez.
my apologies. Okay.
No problem. And now I will pass it to you, Ms. Batchelor. Please, you're invited to make a 1.5-minute opening statement.
Thank you so much. So thank you again to the League of Women Voters for inviting us to speak and engage tonight. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Valerie Batchelor, and I'm the product of working class immigrant parents who instilled in my sister and I the importance of a good education. As an English language learner, I struggled to fit in and catch up with my peers, but I had the support of caring educators and classified staff who helped me grow, learn, and thrive. I was transformed by public education, and I want OUSD to be that welcoming, transformative space for all of our students. And I believe in order to do that, we need to rescind the school closures, fully fund our classrooms, and ensure that we create and stick to a budget that supports the academic and social emotional success of our students. I'm not a politician. I'm a union organizer. So I know how to bring people together and fight for the common good. If elected on the school board, I will work with our students, families, community leaders, and others to identify issues, build a coalition, and develop a plan to make the changes that we want to see in our district. I've spent my career empowering working people, and I will bring those skills to the school board. I also want to say that I'm the proud partner of an OUSD teacher, and I see the challenges that he faces every single day, both in the classroom and the district office. And I think we could do better, not only for our educators and classified staff who do amazing work every single day, but for our families and our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Ms. Batchelor, we'll stay with you for this next question. What are your top 3 priorities, and what challenges will you need to address to implement them?
So I think the first priority is to rescind the school closures that happened last year. We've already seen in my neighborhood the impacts that the school closure of Parker has had on our community, and they are devastating. Not only have we lost students to other districts or to our charter schools, but we have also lost the community spaces that our families know about and trust. And so I think that part of building that trust again is rescinding those school closures and opening up our schools once again. Secondly, I want to make sure that we have a budget that not only supports the social, emotional, and academic success of our students, but respects our educators and classified staff every single day. Right now, we have educators that are homeless, classified staff that can't make ends meet and have to work 2 or 3 jobs. And I think that that is unacceptable here in the city of Oakland. We need to make sure that we're fully investing in not only the classrooms, but also the humans that make our classrooms work. And third of all, I want to make sure that our English language learners are getting everything that they need in their classrooms. As an English language learner, I understand the challenges that folks face, and I understand the challenges that our educators really face with that community. And I want to make sure they get everything that they need in order to learn, grow, and thrive, just like I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mangia, you are up.
Yes, thank you. I have 3 priorities as a board member. The first is my highest priority, and that really is our students. We have let adult egos and adult agendas drive the conversation for too long, and we need to bring the conversation back to how our students are doing and how we are serving them. Because at the end of the day, that's why we're here, right? That's the purpose of public education, to ensure that our kids get that quality education. And when I say that, it's really diving in, right? Looking at how our students are doing overall, but then disaggregating by certain factors like race and socioeconomic status to ensure that we are eliminating those equity gaps, those disparities that we see so broadly across the district. My second priority is ensuring that we have a long-term sustainable budget in place. For the first time in 20 years, we do not have a projected deficit. This is huge, and I want to applaud the district for that. And we need to make sure that we leverage this moment, take advantage of it, and continue to move in the right direction while moving forward to compensate our educators accordingly, because teaching is the hardest job in the world, and we have the lowest pay in the Bay Area for our teachers, and maintaining a strong, stable budget over time. So that's number 2. And then third and last is recognizing the deep levels of distrust across the district and working really intentionally to rebuild it. That takes deep, authentic community engagement. That takes transparency. That takes clear communication about trade-offs with feedback loops after decisions are made so that folks know why things happen. And I believe that together we can move forward in a positive way for our kids, families, and educators.
Thank you. Mr. Velasquez, same question.
Thank you. Yeah, so number 1 would be rescinding school closures, like Valerie mentioned earlier. As a parent that actually came from several school closures, including Lakeview back in 2011, I can tell you, and it's important for us to really kind of reframe this conversation, that there's been no fiscal analysis over the last 19 years that shows that closing schools and OUSD is actually saving the district any money. And so that's really important to understand as we talk about rescinding school closures, that it's not just something that's an emotional decision. There hasn't been a positive impact, financial impact. And when we talk about retention, teacher retention, when we talk about admin retention or principals, it's destroying our district, and we have to turn that around. Number 2 is resizing our central office staff. We've already had an audit here at OUSD. We know that our central office staff is over 500% larger than other districts that size. And there are millions of dollars that can be saved by resizing our central office staff. And I want to be clear, there are some essential positions in our central office, but there's also a lot of fluff, and it's preventing funding and resources from getting to school sites. Number 3, supporting sustainable schools, community schools here in OUSD. We have money that's coming in from California. That would also include having things like trade pathways for our middle school and our high schoolers to find other options for trades and careers that will last them a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Velasquez. And Mr. Velasquez, we'll stay with you for this next question. 2-part question. How do you envision your role on the school board, and what particular strengths and skills will you bring to the board?
That's a great question, I think. So thank you again, Monique. So part 1 was my relationship with the board. I currently have been endorsed by Mike Hutchinson. Mike and I were sitting side by side in Washington, DC, almost exactly a decade ago, talking about a moratorium on school closures in Oakland, California, with the Department of Education. I did all of that on my own as a parent. We started and became founding members of Journey for Justice. I've traveled around the country again on my own, sitting with community members and leaders from Black and Brown communities around the nation, trying to connect the dots and realizing what's happening in Oakland is not just happening here in Oakland, it's happening nationally. And we got to change that conversation. You know, another, I think, trait or characteristic or gift that I have is bringing people together like I did a decade ago in our community, and really trying to understand what is happening to Oakland, what is happening to our communities as we're slowly being choked out on resources are being choked out to communities that need it the most. So I want to kind of emphasize one last piece there, is that my relationship with the current board, having a relationship with central office staff in OUSD to work and bring people together and start getting people to move in the same direction around advocating for OUSD, advocating for public education is number one. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Batchelor, same question to you.
Thank you so much. So the role that I envision is really a coalition builder. I want to make sure that our students are getting everything that they need. And what that means is we need to have a board that is working together to make sure that we are fully funding our every classroom, so that we are making sure that community schools funding is being used in the proper way. And to me, that means building a coalition of folks that are willing to support that change. And I have the skill sets. I said, you know, I'm a union organizer. I know how to bring folks together, come up with a solution to a problem, and really then go forth and take action to make sure that those changes are being implemented. And I think that that's what we need on the board right now. We have a lot of folks that just take whatever the superintendent says as God, as gospel. And I think that that is inappropriate. We need to be looking at the books. We need to be making sure that we are doing our due diligence to supervise the superintendent, to supervise our district office. And I will do that. And I will try to build a coalition with other school board members like Van Cedric Williams and Mike Hutchinson, who support my campaign, and I've supported their campaigns as well. And I want to make sure that we have a school board that is functioning, so that our students have a place in which they can come to and ask questions and also be heard. That was another reason why I'm running for school board, is because our last school board shut out community, shut out our students. And I think that we really need to make sure that we're bringing all of those folks together, that we are asking the right questions, and that we are moving forward as a community together to better our schools.
Thank you. Ms. Mungia, same question.
Yes, thank you so much. At the end of the day, it's the board's responsibility to ensure the sanctity of public education and ensure that all of our kids get that high quality education. And we need to be upfront that it takes at least 4 board members to get that, right? We need a quorum. You need at least 4 votes to be able to move something forward. And I think I have the ability, if you like a basketball reference, I'm a bit of a Shane Battier of a team, right? You don't necessarily see me making the shots myself, but really lifting up the team together. And I think that I can play that role with the board of building coalitions across differences. And I've done that in my roles thus far. I've worked in partnership with labor, with landlords, with teachers to ensure that we reach the outcomes that we're driving towards. My theory of change is one that aligns closely with a phrase that originated from the South African disability rights movement, which is nothing about us without us. And that's the idea that those most impacted by systems of oppression should be involved in the solution. So really, my role on the board is ensuring that we're lifting up the voices of those most marginalized, and especially our students, because they're the ones experiencing this every day. Our young people know what they need, know what they want to be successful, and really just lifting up and centering their voices throughout.
Thank you. And Ms. Mungia, we'll stay with you to go first for the next question. The superintendent has argued that given the sharp decline in students over the last several decades and aging facilities with poorly paid staff, that the solution is to reduce the number of schools that must be managed and maintained to increase salaries to teaching staff. How do you propose to work with all stakeholders to resolve the school closures issue?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. And one, I want to also emphasize what one of my opponents shared, which is that there's plenty of research out there that shows that closing a school doesn't necessarily save dollars. However, I do think that there's a reality that the number of schools we have, we might not save dollars, but it lets us concentrate the dollars that we do have on fewer sites. Right now, if you look at 3rd grade literacy, for one example, we know that it is a common predictor of high school graduation, of college completion, of ultimately life outcomes. Upwards of 70% of our white kids are reading on grade level, less than a quarter of our Black and brown kids. And to me, that is unconscionable, and we must do something about it. We know our resources are, we got a lift from the state right now, right? We got 6.5% in LCFF and 6.5% in COLA. But other than that, we don't see additional resources coming in, and yet our costs are increasing with declining enrollment year to year. So we do need to acknowledge the fact that if we want to concentrate our resources to actually have those outcomes, that needs to occur. What I disagree with the board's decision pre me joining was the process by which it occurred. It was incredibly speedy, it lacked transparency, it lacked community engagement, and it lacked that equity impact analysis that we know is key to ensure that we are doing things, again, to my last point, in partnership with communities so that our kids really do get that education that we know that they deserve.
Thank you. Mr. Velasquez, same question to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think, like Ms. Mungia said, Kira, and I appreciate, this is the difference between Ms. Batchelor, myself, and Kira. Kira's been supported by, endorsed by folks that are continuing to close schools. And that rhetoric is exactly that. And I think we have to draw the line here respectfully. Like, it's okay to disagree, but when you say there's been no fiscal analysis that closing schools is saving the district any money, and then no one wants to mention that we have 40 charter schools in our district, we were and almost still at the most charter schools in a city in California per capita for the size of our district, then what are we really talking about? And that is tied into the conversations and questions that were asked by you, Monique, by the community. And we got to understand, like, what is this really, really about? Is it okay to say, is California really in a deficit when we have $96 billion surplus? Is this a question of providing resources and being proactive? Does this affect public safety? I mean, there is a long list here that's affecting our communities, especially Black and Brown, that are constantly being stripped of resources. And we don't want to have that conversation. We don't want to address the elephant in the room. And so respectfully, I disagree completely with Kira, because I think that is what got us here. We can't sustain that. And it keeps strangling our communities that I've been part of, that I'm still in, around me, being closed and stripping resources for those children and families that need them the most. We got to move that conversation forward in a different way. Thank you.
Ms. Batchelor, same question to you.
Thank you so much for this question, because again, this is one of the reasons why I'm running for school board director. I think we're taking a chopping knife when we need to be looking at a more surgical approach. We are spending over 591% more than any other district in our top administrative level. That is a place where we can chop versus chopping our schools. And every time we close one of our schools, we lose money. So the superintendent is not correct in her assumption that we need to close schools in order to keep our schools open. Every single time we close our schools, we lose money. By closing Parker and Community Day, we have lost $1.5 million for our students here in Oakland. So if we continue to close our schools, like other folks have mentioned here, we will continue to destabilize our school system. We will continue to have facilities that are crumbling because we do not have the funding to actually make any of those changes. And we will continue to bleed out as a district. So we need to stop, do a zero-based budgeting process so that we can make sure that we are implementing programs and policies that make the most sense for our students, and stop using such a sharp tool as a school closure when we need to be making more surgical approaches to our budget to make sure that we are fully funding our education versus stifling it from the get-go.
Thank you. And Ms. Batchelor, we will start with you for this next question, which will be a three-part, fairly lengthy question. COVID has heightened our awareness of students who have stopped attending school. Are you aware of any current efforts to track students who have stopped attending during COVID? Second, how would you track this and get those students back in school? And lastly, what actions or strategies would you advocate or support that OUSD takes to address chronic truancy, which is defined as students missing 10% or more school days per school year?
Wow, that's a loaded one. Thank you for that. So I am not aware of any specific tracking that we're doing with our students that are missing from COVID. Anecdotally, I know that there's a lot of folks that have not only missed school, but are also, missing, as Kira was mentioning, missing a lot of their classes, or there's their class time throughout the day, even when they're on campus. So I understand that this is a huge problem for all of our campuses. I want to make sure that all of our students not only want to come to school, but actively do come to school. And I think part of the reason why folks are seeing OUSD as not a place where they want to be is, again, the school closures and the closures of programs and events that we had pre-pandemic. So, for example, every year restorative justice coaches have to reapply for their jobs. It is not a guaranteed position. I know many students that say the reason why they come to classes, the reason why they're on our campuses is because of those restorative justice programs. Same thing with our building trades programs. We need to strengthen those programs to really attract more of our students to stay in OUSD and to make sure that their classes, that they thrive during those classes. The last thing I'll also say is we need to strengthen our athletics program. I was just at CCPA today, and they don't even have a field to be able to play games, or play in any games. So how can we attract more folks if we don't even have access to those basic needs?
Thank you. Ms. Mangia, same question to you.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing that we're going to do to increase our enrollment and attendance as well is ensure that we have high quality, rigorous academics to make sure that our kids are reading and are doing math. If you don't know how to read and you're starting to go into 5th grade, 7th grade, high school, and you don't understand what's going on, you're going to act out. You're not going to want to be there. So there are very basic things that we need to be doing to ensure that our kids are reading on grade level, can do math from the moment they enter school, because ultimately those gaps just end up widening over time. So we really need to, again, back to my first priority, ensure that our students are doing well and they have the supports they need. Then to the second point is the programming. I think that it's a really strong point that parents firmly want what's best for their kids, and they're going to choose the school that offers those exciting things, right? Dual language programs, a strong athletics, strong after school, all of these other opportunities. And so it's making sure that we have the baseline down first, but then that we're building that up. And again, that's where it takes resources and making sure that our schools are fully resourced to be able to do so. But I do believe we can get there, that we can be making sure that our kids are reading, are doing math, and attending school so that everyone is supported. And I will say that currently a plan for tracking attendance goes down to the school site level. And so they have a plan to do that, that they're implementing right now. But I think that there's an opportunity to ensure that they're supported with those resources and a kind of citywide plan to do so as well.
Thank you. Mr. Velasquez, same question to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Monique. Yeah, so I'm not aware of solid plans. So the first part of the question is a no. I think number two, the second part of that is that there is a gap. We don't know why. We're not asking the right questions. We're not properly engaged at school sites. And I really think that this may go back, just to kind of frame it for some of the folks that may not be aware of this. I think the board prior, and I'm gonna speak specifically to like District 6, Shanti and Gary did not bring the board together to start having these discussions when they needed to happen a year ago, 2 years ago to kind of get there. I think there's a lot of questions around mental health. This kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier about sustainable community schools and providing the right resources at school sites to find out what is causing truancy, what is causing kids to stay at home, what's going on with parents. And so I think, there's some questions here that we're not really used to asking, and more importantly, we don't have the answers to. So when we talk about, I've been saying in a lot of forums, like open up the gates. And someone brought this to my, my attention, something that I've been experiencing, and I love the way they frame it. It's like OUSD hasn't opened up the gates. And what I mean by that is that we haven't physically opened up these spaces, the community spaces, the school. The one resource that we all have in our neighborhoods is the school site. And when we actually start doing that and engaging our communities in and around those school sites, you will start to see something change at the school sites and seeing people come and be a magnet in those communities. And that's what we need to start talking about.
Thank you. And Mr. Velasquez, you are up first for the next question. Youth are very concerned about the ongoing climate crisis. In October 2020, the school board adopted a climate emergency action resolution. How will you ensure the district makes progress on the goals outlined in that resolution?
This is really a really good question too. So I actually want to, it's completely related. Right now in D6, we had an area down by San Leandro that removed something about 6 or 7 diesel truck engines that were permitted and approved by the city. And I think it's really important. We talk about D6 and we're not talking about the connection of all the diesel fumes and smoke that's coming from this that the city approved. And we have school sites and communities down the street and people's health and is directly impacted by these kind of things. So we don't have a connection to the city to say, why are we approving these kind of permits? Why do we have diesel engines? And why are we supporting this business that has environmental impact in our communities right here in D6? And that's not just obviously in D6. That impact, that smoke, that waste is affecting people throughout the city. So I just want to be very specific. Instead of talk general, we have issues right now in D6 happening and throughout our city that are impacting our children and our families throughout the city. And we got to make sure that we are working with the city and making sure that they understand the environmental impact on what those permits or what that construction or what is going on that they're approving that's affecting our children and community. So I'll kind of park it there since time is almost up. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Batchelor, your next, same question.
Thank you so much. So in reading over the resolution, I think it's really important that we make sure that we support financially and fully the task force that was created within the resolution to make sure that we meet the goals of the resolution. I do also see that there is also a lot of goals around getting to clean electricity by a certain date, getting to other pieces of it by specific dates. And I think those are really important. And so one of the things that I would do is I would also try to ensure that the task force is fully funded to make sure that they have everything that they need in order to be implementing the pieces of the resolution. And that we actually have a plan that is being rolled out. Because again, a lot of times, especially during this last board, we have a lot of resolutions, we pass these board policies, but nobody wants to go ahead and put the dollars in to implement some of this stuff. And I want to make sure that our students are engaged and involved in that process as well. Because, you know, we have pathways, like at Skyline, there is a pathway around ecology and green systems. Let's involve our students in making some of that transformative change on our campuses versus it just being top down from the district office. And I agree, we need to continue to make sure that when we work with the city, that we work with the city to make sure that they're also implementing a lot of climate change policies so that we can work together as partners and maybe even have some of our students intern for some of those different programs and actions that we can take together.
Thank you. Ms. Mangia?
Yeah, I too want to definitely work in partnership with our young people. Can we just talk about how brilliant they are? And I love that they're just like lifting up this concern as one of the top ones, because we know that educational equity and climate resilience or environmental justice go hand in hand, right? Systems of oppression and the policies that result, like redlining, end up impacting communities of color more often, like we see with the 580 truck ban that disproportionately impacts our flatlands, our heartlands with more gas and toxic fuels. So one, I just want to name that. And we see that also playing out in climate change. We had a record-breaking heat wave 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I've lost track of time. We're on the campaign trail. We've had a record-breaking heat wave recently where some of our classrooms in multiple school sites at D6 got in the 95 and higher. Fights were breaking out. There was zero learning occurring. And so we absolutely need to make sure that we are fully funding the work of the climate resilience plan, that we have a strong implementation plan for it. But then 3, that we are continuously progress monitoring and confirming and ensuring accountability to it, right? It's one thing to have a plan. It's another thing to make sure it's actually going as we expect it to, and that we have clear accountability structures along the way. I will also name that there is a slight dilemma because those classrooms got 95 degrees and up, but our plan is really focused on efficiency, not on ACs. And so we need to also be practical and make sure that our classrooms can stay an okay temperature so that our kids can learn as well.
Thank you. All right, we're going to transition. I'm now going to invite each candidate to make a 1-minute closing statement, starting with Ms. Mangia.
Great, thank you. And thank you everyone again for taking time this Tuesday evening out of your day. As the only former teacher running for this position, I've dedicated my career to Oakland kids. as a classroom teacher at Horace Mann Elementary, as Deputy Director of Education, and now as the recently appointed school board member. I truly believe that the challenges Oakland faces are challenges currently being faced by almost every school district in California, if not the country. And if they're not facing them yet, they will be very soon. We are at a historic moment. It's a make or break time for our Oakland kids, for our families, for our educators. And we have the opportunity to become the model for how to make these tough decisions and get through the difficult moment that we're in now and be on the other side. We have the opportunity to refocus our energy, our time, our resources on students, to get our budget in a long-term stable place, and to rebuild the trust that's been shattered over years so that our students, our families, our educators are thriving. And I would, again, be so honored to have your support in doing so.
Thank you. Mr. Velasquez, we invite you to make a 1-minute closing statement.
Sorry, I was just waiting for the timer. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I botched a little bit of my intro, so I want to pick up from there. So thank you all for being here tonight. I want to just pick up that I really am here to serve my community here across Oakland. And my listening campaign has lasted over 2 decades, listening to families and children and teachers at school sites. And I take that knowledge and that experience very, very seriously. I want to continue to be a voice for our youth, our families, our teachers, our communities throughout Oakland, and make sure they're empowered and respected in a way that I feel that the board hasn't represented our people yet. I am a supporter of sustainable community schools, and I am going to make sure that we rescind school closures and make sure we hold the district financially and fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, Ms. Batchelor, 1-minute closing statement, please.
Thank you so much. So accessing quality education is a great equalizer in our society, and we need to be working every day to strengthen our system from childcare to college. I'm running for school board because I want working families in Oakland to be able to count on OUSD to give their child everything they need. In this election, we have a decision to make. Do we want business as usual and elect folks that will align with school board directors who have closed our schools? Or do we want to change things by electing working class candidates who have been transformed by public education and want to strengthen our public schools? I believe in Oakland. I believe, and as a school board director, I will fight every day to make our schools worthy of our young people and our families. I have been endorsed by the Alameda County Democratic Party, the only candidate here who has, the Alameda Labor Council, Oakland Education Association, SCIU 10-1, Oakland Rising, Superintendent of Public Instruction Tony Thurman, State Controller Betty Yee, Alameda County Board of Trustees, Area 2 Angela Norman, and Oakland School Board Director Van Cedric Williams, as well as Executive Director of Parent Voices Clarissa Dothard, and Educator Kitty Kelly Epstein.
Thank you, Ms. Batchelor. I want to take a moment to thank all 3 of our candidates for being here. We know that being in the public eye and being part of this kind of work is demanding. So the rest of us really do appreciate your willingness to serve. And thank you to our participants and your interest in making educated choices. Before we break, we ask that you please quickly respond to this 2-question poll because we do want your feedback. And we also ask that you please visit our website, lwvoakland.org, for information about our regular and expanded services. Tonight's recorded program will be on our website in 3 languages and will be available on many platforms, including KTOP and YouTube. A ballot is being mailed to every voter starting October 10th. Registration and voting links are also on our website. And when you get ready to complete your ballot, you might want to check Voter's Edge, which gives all the background information, candidates, and ballot measures just for your individualized ballot. This is a great project of the League of Women Voters in collaboration with Tech Volunteers of MapBlight. And lastly, a final reminder, the League of Women Voters does the hands-on work of defending democracy year-round. We hope you'll join us. This ends our program. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you to all the candidates.